So today we're going to be talking about triangle congruence. So we have 5 examples, and we're going to try to look through them one at a time. Now, here comes the first one. Now, what I like to do is I like to use the red marker for the givens, and then blue markers for the reasoning that comes intermediate steps, and green markers for the triangles that which we are looking at. So let's try to get started. Angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent. So here, this one angle is congruent to this angle. Okay, that's one thing that we know. And second, BD is perpendicular to AC. So here we have right angle. That means another right angle right over here. Now, okay. Now the next one is we need to somehow show that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. We're talking about this triangle, I guess. All right. I didn't highlight the other triangle, but it's going to be something like this. So far, when I look at this green triangle, I only have one condition that's been uh, satisfied, one right angle. But how about the other given? You see, this given implies that two angles outside of the triangles are congruent. That means you will realize that this angle right here, angle DAB, is also congruent to DCB. Why? Because these two blue dotted angles are the supplementary angles to the congruent angles, you see? Now, we are looking for the third condition. How would you find the third? That's right. When you look into this green triangle and then DCB, you will realize that the line segment BD is used twice. That means by the reflexive property, we should be able to figure out that those two triangles are congruent by angle, side. All right, then let us try to write this one up and then see what we can get to. So here we have statement. And here we have the regions. First one, I like to write down the given statement. Here we have angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Also, line segment DB is perpendicular to line segment AC. The reasoning will be the given. Those are given to be true. All right, number 2. Because we realize the angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent, the blue dotted angles were congruent too. So what we can do is angle DAB must be congruent to angle DCB. Why? The reasoning is, as we mentioned earlier, supplementary to congruent angles are congruent. All right, now number 3. You see we have perpendicular lines. When we have perpendicular lines, it in fact carries 2 more steps right away. That is angle DB A and angle DB C are right angles. Why are they right angles? Because reasoning would be perpendicular lines form right angles. Now, step number 4. Since we showed that those two are right angles, Next step is angle DBA is in fact congruent to angle DBC. Why? Even because all right angles are congruent. Then let's go for fifth step. Since we proved three conditions here, now we can say triangle ABD must be congruent to triangle CBD. Why? Side, angle, angle. Postulate. All right, so that was it for number one. Let's move on to number two. Number two is something that which you have to fill in the blanks. As you can see, this statement is given here. So we're going to write down the word given. Now, here we have angle P is congruent to angle S. That's one condition. And then since R is the midpoint of PS, we get to realize, yes, PR is congruent to RS. Now we'll be looking for third angle. PRQ, what do you realize about PRQ? Even though given doesn't mention anything, but you will realize that this one is a vertical angle to this one. Aha, then what makes us to say that these two triangles are congruent? Ice angle, side, and angle. Okay, it's a little bit different from the previous one. Here, let's try to look into this question. So why are those two line segments equal to each other? A midpoint divides a line segment into two equal parts. All right, number three. Number three, the reasoning here becomes the vertical angles are congruent. Now step number four. Then these two triangles are congruent to each other, as you can see, angle, side angle. All right, very nice. Let's move on to the next question. All right, number three. Let's get started here. Once again, we have given right on the first one. Now, DG is congruent to GE. Why? Because G is the midpoint. So what we want to write it is this. A midpoint divides a line segment into two equal parts. Now number three, those are the right angles. Why? Because perpendicular lines form right angles. Now number four, DG. So those right angles that was mentioned before are congruent because all right angles are congruent. Number five, same thing is equal to itself, so it's going to be reflexive. Now, the last one. Since FG is congruent to FG, and then G is the midpoint, so these two are equal to each other. So we have Side angle side. All right, let's look at number 4. All right, number 4, let's look at this one together. Line segment AC is congruent to CD. Now, D is the midpoint. So, midpoint, that means it divides the line segment into two equal parts. And somehow we have to prove that these two triangles are congruent. Oh, we have given two conditions already. Oh, wait a minute. The line segment CD is reflexive. Hence, what we can do is side, side, and side itself. All right, let's try to get going. Statement. And reasons. So I'm just going to copy down the givens here. And then the reasoning will be given. Now, number 2. So since D is the midpoint, one thing which we get to realize is AD must be congruent to BD. Why? We can write a midpoint divides a line segment into two equal parts. All right, now CD was reflexive. And then CD being equal to CD would be also reflexive. Now, step number 4. And we can say those two triangles are congruent. And then the reasoning for those two triangles being congruent will be SSS. All right. Now let's move on to the last question. Here, number 5. FO bisects AS. Notice that AS is the one that's been bisected. So the AS has two equal parts. And angle A is congruent to angle S. Aha, that means here we only have two conditions. How can you find the third condition? Since what they are looking for is the left side triangle is congruent to the right side triangle, we get to realize that there is one blue dotted line. Those are the vertical angles and happen to be equal to each other. So therefore, let's write this one up. Statement and then reasons. All right, we're going to write down. And all these things are given. we also talked about since FO is bisecting AS, we get to realize AT must be congruent to ST. It's because a midpoint divides a line segment into two parts. Alright, so now next one is angle FTA is congruent to FDTS. Here, because the blue dotted line angles are vertical angles, so we can say vertical angles are congruent. Vertical angles are congruent. Alright, number 4. Then I think we can go for triangle FAT must be congruent to triangle OST. Here we have angle side angle. Alright, that's it for now. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.